Hi everyone, thanks so much for tuning in. This is Kathy, and I am excited to share this little card today. And I'm going to show you how to make these little bunnies super sparkly. So a couple of things that I used are silk microfine glitter from Elizabeth Craft Designs, and I used the color Cool Diamond. And I used the Nerdy Easter Bunny from Gerda Steiner Designs. The bunny Peep die from Gina Designs. And can I tell you guys, this bunny, $3. Yes, $3 for this die. And I love this die. And I'll show you why in a minute. I also used Peekaboo Circle dies from Gina Designs. And this has been on my wish list for a really long time. So I'm kind of excited that I just got them. And finally, you'll see at the end of the video, I thought the card was done, but it wasn't. So I ended up pulling out my blueprints too from My Favorite Things just to get this stitch detail line to go across the bottom of the card. And one other thing that you would definitely need to do this technique is the Elizabeth Craft Designs clear double-sided adhesive sheets. For this particular technique, this is my favorite adhesive and this is my favorite glitter. I also use a couple of Copic markers, but you'll see that later on in the video. And I also noticed while I was editing the video that I forgot to turn on the camera, and I already had quite a few of, I had 2 of my 3 bunnies already cut out. But I did want to go and show the very first part because it's kind of an important step. So to start out, you do want to get some white cardstock, and any white cardstock will do. It doesn't have to be fancy. And then a piece of your double-sided adhesive. And the first thing that you want to do is peel off the brown release paper. Set that aside. You want to keep it. And then place your adhesive onto the white cardstock. And this stuff is super sticky, so you really kind of only get one shot. You want to leave this release paper on while you do the actual die cutting. And with that white release paper, it's kind of slick, so you do want to leave a little bit of a white cardstock exposed so that when you place your die, and this die comes with the little eyes and nose, you want to be able to line that up. It's a little finicky this morning. And I like to use Scotch removable tape for this, and I took a nice good chunk and ever so carefully taped down that nose, and I do have the tape go off on the cardstock. It just helps keep that bunny in place, and then you run it through your die cut machine as normal. So now that that's done, we'll move on and get started with the card. Okay, so I just finished cutting out the 3rd bunny. And I was thinking about how I was going to get their eyes and nose with color, because there was no way I was going to be able to paper piece those little tiny dots back into place. So I took a piece of scrap paper, actually it's a piece of scrap cardstock, and I got a brown marker, and it is a water-based marker because I plan on using Copics later and I didn't want it to interact with the Copics. And I just, as you can see, just colored in a brown line and then trimmed it down to a thinner strip. Added a little bit of adhesive on the back of the bunny just to get the brown colored cardstock to adhere behind him. Now, I suppose I probably could have just used a piece of brown cardstock, but I had white scraps close by and a brown marker close by, so that's why I did that. Once I had their eyes and noses done, it was time to get them ready to be glittered up. So I got my tray with a fabric softener sheet and a coffee filter. The fabric softener sheet actually helps with the static, and then the coffee filter is just going to catch all of the glitter. So I removed the release paper off the front of each bunny, and I mentioned previously to hold on to the brown release paper, and that is so that I could hold the bunny to get the rest of the release paper off without touching the sticky. You want to avoid touching the adhesive as much as possible because the oils from your hands can make it less sticky. You also want to make sure that you don't touch your bunnies next to each other, because those adhesive sheets are so sticky that they'll just stick right together. Next step is to coat them up really well with a bunch of glitter. Now this is kind of a messy project because you know how glitter is, it gets everywhere and it's hard to clean up, but it's fun and I like it. And having that nice little red bucket, which there's a story behind that red bucket, which I'll get to in a second. Anyway, once you get the glitter coated over the bunnies, you want to burnish it with your fingers really well into that adhesive sheet so it sticks really well. And once you think you're done, you kind of tap off the excess and then run your fingers over the bunnies and make sure that you don't feel any sticky. Once they're totally coated with glitter, you're good to go and you can start the next step, which is to add the color. Nope, don't add the color yet. You want to get a soft brush and kind of get rid of the excess glitter. So that's what I did there. Next, you get to add a little bit of the color. So I took a piece of scratch paper and I have some repositionable adhesive just to hold the bunny in place while I color it with my Copics. The first one I did is the yellow one. I used Y08, and this is the biggest tip with this. You just want to dab the side of the brush nib on top of the glitter. You don't want to move it back and forth. You don't want to go in a circular motion for a couple of reasons. If you go back and forth, too much ink will be released and the glitter will get wet from the ink and start to move around and expose the adhesive. The second reason is I don't know how healthy it is to have glitter on rubbing up against the nib of your marker. I've done this technique many times. I've never had an issue, but you do just want to make sure that you just dab up and down, and you don't have to work really fast. It's, you know, the color just kind of spreads out. It's really kind of a cool technique to watch. So back to that red glitter catch bucket of mine. My sister and a friend of mine had gone to a convention, a stamp convention in Las Vegas, and this is years and years ago. And we drove because we used to live in California, so it was 4.5, 5-hour drive. And on our way home, we stopped at an In-N-Out Burger, and our meal came in these red trays. And my friend said, these would be really nice to use for a craft room to catch embossing powders and glitters. And I said, yes, it would. I walked up to the counter and I asked, and they actually gave me like 6 of them. So we each ended up with 2. And that's how I came about with that little red tray to catch my glitter. So back to the bunny, you saw that I had done the pink one. I did RV04 for that one, and for the purple one, I did BV02. Of course, I'll have everything listed below as well as over on my blog. And I noticed with the purple bunny that I actually did 2 coats because that marker was recently refilled and it kind of started to get a little bit blotchy. So it is okay to do 2 coats. You just want to, again, be careful not to go in a back and forth motion. You just literally want to dab dab up and down. After I had all my bunnies colored up, I die cut a circle using that, what are they called? Peekaboo scallop circles from Gina Designs, and I cut that out of a piece of patterned paper that I had in my stash. And here I'm just kind of playing with the placement on where I want to have the bunnies be. I wanted them kind of peeking up through the circle, and I wanted them to have a white background. So I cut a piece of cardstock that was just a little bit smaller than the patterned paper. And to get the bunnies to stick where I wanted them, I put a little bit of adhesive at the bottom of the circle and pressed down and lifted them up. And if you know me, you know what's going to come next. Yes, here comes the foam tape. And I used a whole lot of foam tape, but I'm going to kind of skip over this because I used so much and it was kind of taking some time to do it. So there you go. That's how much foam tape I used. And then it was time to start removing the release paper. And that's a lot of foam tape, and I kind of skipped through this too because it's no fun to sit there and watch me pull off a bunch of release tape. After I had all of that release tape removed, I placed the white cardstock on the back so that I have that white behind the bunnies. Then I adhere that to a piece of yellow cardstock, and from there I adhere it to the front of a top folding white note card, and it's just your regular standard A2 size. And I think my tape runner is getting low because it didn't really want to put any adhesive down, so I was kind of arguing with it there. So I adhered that to the front of my note card, and then decided that I wanted to add a sentiment. So I used the Happy Easter from the Nerdy Easter Bunny set from Gerda Steiner Designs. Just kind of placed it where I wanted it to be, picked it up with an acrylic block. I'll be using versafine onyx black ink to stamp it. And the whole time I was doing this, I was holding my breath because everything was already done and I really didn't want to, mess up on the sentiment, and it worked out quite nicely. At that point, I thought the card was done, and I stepped away, and when I came back, I said, nope, not done. So I cut a strip of yellow cardstock. It's the same color yellow that I used for behind the patterned paper. And again, that was from my stash. And I used the blueprints too from my favorite things for that little strip. And then decided that a couple of sequins that matched the bunnies would be perfect to finish up the card. So I added those on, and that finishes up the card today. Thank you so much for tuning in. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. If you've not yet subscribed, I'd love it if you would. Again, everything will be listed down below, and we'll catch you next time.